Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Spring 2022 Change for Climate Lunchbox series. Today's session will introduce you to a newly released pilot program that provides low-cost financing for energy-related home upgrades and makes repayment convenient through your regular property tax bill. I like to call it the Buy Now, Pay Later program. My name is Heather Wheelaker, and I'm here with my colleague, Karen Young. We both work in the Planning and Environment Services branch with the city, and we're joined today by another colleague from our same unit, Barbara Daly, who I will introduce shortly. And please note, this session is being recorded. We will begin by acknowledging the traditional land on which we are delivering this session is Treaty 6 territory. We thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Blackfoot. We also acknowledge this as the Métis homeland and the home of one of the largest communities of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. It is a welcoming place for all people who come from around the world to share Edmonton as a home. As treaty members, each of us shares responsibility for creating and nurturing an inclusive and respectful community. And it's now my pleasure to introduce you to our presenter today. Today, we are joined by Barbara Daly, a senior project manager with the City of Edmonton, who led CEIP even before it was called such. Some of you may remember the program called PACE, and the city worked on that over the past 6 or 7 years. PACE was then renamed to CEIP by the province, and Barbara has led the city's involvement throughout all of its various iterations. Barbara is also responsible for a number of other programs that support reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as capacity building across the Edmonton community. Welcome, Barbara. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks very much, Heather and Karen, and thanks to all of you who are having your lunch with us here today. I'll provide an overview of this Clean Energy Improvement Program, specifically around the City of Edmonton pilot, and then maybe I don't do a great job, there'll still be questions at the end, but I'm happy to stick around and make sure everybody's comfortable with the details. So this is what I'll cover today. Basically what the program is, some unique elements about the City of Edmonton pilot program, and what our intentions are with and after the pilot. So what is CEIP? It's really PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, but it's the Alberta version, which is really just a Alberta PACE. So it's a provincial program that at the very basic level provides financing. A municipality provides financing to a property owner, residential or commercial, in order to do specific eligible upgrades. They would be energy efficiency or renewable energy, and the repayment is done via the property tax bill over quite a long period of time. So the benefits are that the financing is actually tied to the property, not to a person like a traditional loan, and that the benefits and the cost are enjoyed by whoever's owning the property now. So if we were to sell a CEIP property in 5 years and the CEIP repayment continued beyond that because we have solar installation, that sort of thing, then the new owner would just assume that obligation through the property tax bill. So longer duration, low financing, that's a benefit of having the city involved, and quite a wide range of upgrades that would benefit all property owners from an energy consumption and GHG emissions reduction angle. So as Heather mentioned, the city's been aware of PACE for more than a decade. When the research was being done for the Way We Green, and we saw City of Edmonton absolutely saw the potential in the program, but there was something in our way, and that was that the Municipal Government Act needed a pretty significant change, and that was done in 2017-2018 through lots and lots of engagement by the province with municipalities, contractors, individuals, different organizations. And what emerged on January 1st of 2019 was a regulation, an act that basically put this program, made it possible in the province of Alberta. Now, in order for it to actually be active anywhere, a municipality needs to opt in to the program, and that's exactly what the City of Edmonton did on August 19th, 2021. In March 29th, our residential stream launched and was very quickly fully subscribed, and we plan to launch the commercial stream in 2022, June. so within a month or so. For those of you who are interested in this from a residential angle, still, I think some real value from staying and watching this this explanation of how the CEIP residential works, in that our elected officials have a keen interest in our PACE pilot, our CEIP pilot, and we're actually now doing some research in order to make recommendations to council about a permanent program. So if this is of interest to you, you didn't necessarily miss the boat with our pilot, that there's a reasonable chance, reasonable possibility that our elected officials will want to scale this up into a permanent program. So some program details. I'm going to talk a little bit like no one on the call knows anything, so please forgive me, but this way we'll get to all the nitty gritty and the useful details for a possible applicant. So the residential stream, the definition of residential according to the program, again, it's a provincial program, is 1 to 4 units. So it could be a single family home or a duplex. The amount that any one property owner in residential could finance is between a minimum of $3,000 and a maximum of $50,000. There is another cap too, and that is your CEIP obligation, your CEIP payment annually cannot more than double your municipal property taxes. So average municipal property tax in the city of Edmonton is $2,500 a year. That's broken up in monthly payments potentially. And that's strictly the municipal piece, not the education piece or other line items that might be on a property tax bill. So at $2,500 a year, that means that you could potentially finance up to $2,500 a year, up to 20 years for CEIP type retrofit. So there's a little bit of math over lunch. The number of applicants we plan to do in our pilot program is 80. And we're on track, I think, to do 80. We've got the first 35 submissions, taking them in a first come, first served order. First 35 submissions are actually moving along quite nicely, and we actually expect that some contractors will begin work on these properties for property owners within the next few weeks. If you're a commercial property owner, our launch again would probably be in June of 2022. We're in great shape to proceed with the launch. Alberta Municipalities is the vendor or the administrator that was actually named by the government of Alberta. So they're the only administrator allowed to oversee this program and work with municipalities. And when they took this over about 1.5 years ago, it was a great sort of straw dog of a program, but they've been charged with actually fleshing it out. So they focused first on the residential program under CEIP, and that's why we were able to launch in March. And there have actually been several brave municipalities before us, Rocky Mountain House, Devon, who've already launched and have kind of found a few bugs and took care of those for us. So when we launched March 29th, it's actually gone very, very smoothly. Commercial properties, though, that program is just being finalized with Alberta municipalities. We're helping them quite a bit. Looks like Edmonton will be the only commercial program in the near future. So lots of eyes in the city of Edmonton as we go through a commercial version of CEIP and see what sort of interest and impact there is from that part of our program. This is only interesting to me maybe, but there are 3 parties involved with running this program. So we needed funding for it. So the city of Edmonton actually had to borrow from some source of funding. And we borrowed from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities through their Green Municipal Fund. And we submitted a very detailed proposal for this pilot program, and they allowed us just almost $10 million. And some of that is forgivable loan, which is great because we pass that saving along to applicants. So not only can the city of Edmonton get extremely low rates as a municipality and also dealing directly with this government body, but we don't make any money from this at all. And are we to reach the full 1.2 million, it'll actually be blended in to reduce the very low interest rate even further. The middle column, that's Alberta municipalities. They've just rebranded. They were called ENC before, but they're the administrator named by the government of Alberta. They're the only administrator for this program. And they have an interesting role in that they deliver both regulatory services, things they have to do as per the government, the act, and also optional services. So the city of Edmonton has engaged AMSC to do a whole bunch of activities to ensure just a smooth process and a good applicant experience for both residential and when it launches commercial. So Alberta municipalities, key player, and then there's the city of Edmonton over on the right, and it details a few places in the city where these applications get touched. And so the core team in environment definitely handles these. There's the tax team actually reviews the applications to ensure a good 5-year history of tax payment for that property owner. Our law team has prepared financing agreements. Our finance team actually negotiated the loan with FCM. And ultimately, our tax department will collect these repayment payments and forward on back onto FCM. So it's a big circle in terms of where we got the money from, how it's used, contractors get paid. The home is now, or the commercial building or residential building is now upgraded, and that owner is enjoying a more comfortable existence, potentially lower administration bills, and they repay that financing through the property tax bill. Some of the eligible upgrades, these are more categories than individual upgrades, but it's quite a long list. And I invite anyone to go on to the AMSE. There's the website at the bottom of this slide to just see just how extensive the list is. And while only the residential eligible items are up now, you can count on a very similar list, quite a similar list for commercial being loaded, with obviously things like boilers and other types of things that are rarely seen in homes, but a very long list. The truth is that every building has its own needs, depending on how old it is, what sort of upgrades, its design, and so it will be quite some custom decisions, building by building, for what retrofits should be done. This is an example of what it looks like right on the website. I won't read through it all, obviously, but lots of detail for every one of the upgrades are available on that CEIP, myceip.ca website, so that it's quite easy for an applicant to understand what would be required were they to pursue, in this example, an EPM motor for the residential furnace. So, how long is it expected to last? 6 years. And that's important because that'll be the duration over which this item can be repaid. So the 6-year usable life. Solar would be 20 years. Insulation would be, I think, 15. So each one has some unique details. And as you shop through those retrofits, there's lots of detail. And again, I should say that Alberta municipalities and the city of Edmonton, but Alberta municipalities is in the front line, has a really talented team that are there to really ensure a great applicant experience. So lots of support for those going through this process. I should say as well here, all of the pre-qualifications, all of the applications that have come through, the pre-qualifications and ultimately applications for residential had to have an inter-guide audit done. And that's to ensure that the homeowner is very informed about what their home could benefit from, and in what order things could be done and what the impact would be. So it's up to the homeowner after that to decide what they want to choose for upgrades. Everything, few things, minimum 3 for this program, but that mandatory audit is to ensure that building owners know what their building requires. City of Edmonton also has a number of rebate programs in market. And again, to ensure a good applicant experience, we are coordinating with the rebate programs to ensure the maximum support for each of the qualified and approved applications. So for a residential applicant, for example, who submitted and approved, their application is for, let's say, $20,000, we'll actually enroll them in our HERA, our home energy retrofit program, and also the home solar, if in fact that's one of their upgrades, and we'll secure and reserve funding for whatever they're entitled to based on the work. And at the end, those rebates will actually be allotted either to the city to reduce the amount of financing that is required, or directly to the applicant, the homeowner, if in fact they've exceeded $50,000 in total investment. So that's a way to stack the various incentive programs the city has. We also encourage property owners to pursue any other rebate program there is. And off the top of my head, I'll say residences, the Canada Greener Homes is up to $5,000. It's actually $5,600 because you will have to do an inter-guide audit for them, and that one could serve for here. So we're kind of on the same page in terms of ensuring a really knowledgeable property owner when you make these decisions. So I mentioned already the residential stream launched, very well received. We actually had to close the door after about 4 days. So that's good news, bad news, I suppose. But we have 127 in total pre-qualifications. It's a two-step process, pre-qualifications through the door. And so we expect about 80 of them will definitely be funded. Well, that's what we're shooting for, 80 for a nice sample to really test this program and understand its flaws, what we could do better, or if it's perfect. And the balance of them are waitlisted. And if there's additional funding, we would go beyond the 80. And just to give you a feel for how we're whittling away at that, the first 35 have all been invited to full application. So it was very detailed submitting the pre-qualification, but we had some pretty knowledgeable people who were ready to do so. 3 canceled at the time this was prepared, but actually we're up to 4 canceled. So now we're starting to dig into that waiting list a bit. So for those of you who are on the wait list, if anybody like that is on this call, yeah, we could go deeper into that 127 and it's just the first 80. So don't want to hold anybody up in making decisions for retrofitting their home. That's the most important thing to come out of this program. But if you've got options like a home line of credit or would find some other way to pay for these things, we also don't want to stop people or slow people down from making these choices. A quick look at our data from the 127 pre-qualifications. Not surprisingly, almost 3/4 of them will include solar in their minimum 3 upgrades. That minimum 3 upgrade is something unique to the city of Edmonton. It was important to us that we really, it's a subsidized incentive for people. The city of Edmonton does bear some costs, that's their money, and really wanted to make sure that there was a great investment, that these were substantial retrofits. And I'm sure in my own home, I could probably do 7 things or 8 things, but there's the reality of how much can I or what do I want to finance. So 3 seemed fair, and in fact, there was no challenges filling and overfilling the submissions on the wait list with people doing 3 or more. Got some that are deep, that are heading towards net zero. So about just under 3/4 will include solar because either they have it or they don't need it. Windows and doors, insulation, water heating. So I really like the windows and doors insulation because those aren't, the most attractive of the upgrades, but they're often the most effective. So I think people are really reading their Energuide audits closely and making some good decisions on what to do and when. And by reducing the consumption through better windows, doors, insulation, and other things like that, you actually potentially reduce the size of the solar installation that's required. We had expected about $15,000 would be the average investment. That was the experience in Toronto. But we were actually getting up to $33,000. That's the average investment at the moment. So just delighted that people are willing to make these kinds of investments. I think the fact that it's transferable to the next owner of the home it is a real plus. It's probably the key benefit of this financing process. We wanted to see too, was there any one particular neighborhood who was most interested, most able to take advantage of this? And there's all the little dots include the whole 127. So not everybody will necessarily be done, but you can see that it is sprinkled across the entire municipal boundary of Edmonton. Shows that there's interest really across the geography within these boundaries. So that made me happy. And then the next one is, what about these investments? I already said that the average investment is the $33,000. Since you can go up to $50,000 and your minimum is 3, how many of these people submitting their applications need to and are willing to do the full $50,000? And that's the big S, the dollar sign, really. I can't really tell. That's the big dollar sign. And you can see that the number of applicants, at least in their preliminary submission, have indicated that they will be shooting to meet or exceed that $50,000 maximum for financing. So that was also very encouraging. And the findings of this pilot, not just for the city of Edmonton, but for the basic program, we work very closely with Alberta municipalities, may lead us to make recommendations about maybe changes to the regulation ultimately. Maybe the ceiling for a residential should be 75,000 in order to really entertain a deep green. Maybe it's 100,000. Maybe we missed some things on the eligible list. So this pilot really will be a great fact-finding mission in order to maybe make the program better if and when our council ponders expanding it and turning it into a full-scale program. And that's the whole story. Heather?
We've got a question here from Tara. Is the CEIP still open if the pilot is closed? How does that work, Barbara?
Yeah, you'll see a very polite message on the Alberta Municipalities website indicating that the waitlisting is closed. So if it reopens, there'll be a public service announcement through Change for Climate and from the Alberta Municipalities and from the City of Edmonton. But at the moment, it is closed to further waitlisting. We just felt that we might be doing some damage by continuing to accept waitlisters if there really is, based on our current funding, very low to no chance that they would actually be successful in this pilot. So we wanted to divert them maybe to some other options like a home equity line of credit or some other sorts of funding in order to do retrofits if in fact that's something they need to do right away. Thanks, Tara.
Okay, thank you. And the next question from Aubrey. Maybe you've covered this, but can you confirm that you can use the Canada Greener Homes Grant home audit results towards the CEIP as well? So both require an audit, correct?
It's an EnerGuide audit too, and it's version 15, I believe, but whatever is eligible, we've aligned ourselves with the requirements for Canada Greener Homes. So you get that audit done for Canada Greener Homes and get your rebate through Canada Greener Homes. If you have to do, I think, one upgrade, and then that is absolutely, that will stand and be useful for our program as well. And just to ramble on a little bit more, City of Edmonton has been very encouraging to homeowners to get EnerGuide audits for several years. And there are 5,000 or so across the city that we were party to, either through a rebate or programs, some other supporting programs. So I think that's part of the reason why it was so easy to fully subscribe, is that that EnerGuide audit didn't take 3 months to book and 2 weeks to get the report. It was people already had their EnerGuide audits done and had already made their decisions about retrofit. So getting that done sooner rather than later and enjoying the rebate at Canada Greener Homes is a great idea.
Okay, perfect. Next couple of questions is about the rate of financing through the city. William asks, and Evelyn says, what are the loan rates for residential? And could I get the money cheaper from the bank?
That's a good question. So one of the beauties of having a municipality be the borrower and the provider of finance is that as a AAA or whatever our rating is at the moment, the city will get excellent rates and pass them along. The city makes no money off this. There's no padding of rates. We pass along the rate that we get. So I would suspect that the city could get the better rates than anywhere else that a private individual might go to. Currently, you'll see the language is that we're a maximum of 3%, and it's actually at the moment quite a bit lower than that. But our loan is tied to FCM's the Bank of Canada rate, and so that there's a Bank of Canada rate plus, and as you know, that just went up about half a point in April, and it's due to go up another 0.5% or more in June. And so that up to 3% will still be true, kind of right through that June increase, provided it's 0.5% or 1%. And then we just want to hedge our bets, because if each time we'll borrow 4 times on almost $10 million total. The interest rate in each tranche will be slightly different because it's tied to the Bank of Canada rate. So maximum 3% is pretty safe at the moment. Should be safe to say that for at least 5-6 months. The first 2, maybe the first 3 tranches, and then that last tranche of funding might be 0.5% higher or something like that. So when you sign your financing agreement, for those of you who are through the door, and I don't think anyone on the call is, you'll get nailed down there. But I'm quite confident that it's as good or better than what you might get at a commercial lending institution.
Okay, thanks, Evelyn and William, for those questions. And Barbara, the next question is from Andre, who says, I started my retrofit, but I am interested to register when it's going to be open. If I've already completed my retrofits, would I qualify? And is there any timeline of when it might reopen?
Yeah, so great question. So no retroactive financing. So if the work has already started or is already completed, then that upgrade or those upgrades would not be eligible for financing. But every house out there has a few upgrades done. So it would be a fresh start with the upgrades that you have not done, have not started, but would be eligible for financing. In terms of when this door might open again, so this is a 2-year pilot. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm with council to not have a gap at the end of the pilot and the start of a permanent program. But I'm just surmising at this point. My impression is that council is eager to get some information out of this pilot and make some decisions so we can plan, organize, be ready. I think the ideal situation is that a scale program might begin immediately after, but those are decisions for council. So I'm not being super helpful, but if you want an ideal situation, that's the one I think we would be shooting for.
Okay, and I think that the bigger takeaway there is you can't have already started your retrofits prior to registering with CEIP, right? Okay. Thanks, Andre, for that. And Lenore wants to know, is doing an energy audit a requirement for using CEIP in all municipalities or just something for Edmonton?
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm not sure of all the details of Devon and Rocky Mountain House. I'm not sure. But knowing that there was a rebate for it and just how much better informed the property owner was, we made it mandatory. City of Edmonton has been a proponent of enterprise audits for a long time, so it's not something we're going to drop for the financing program. So I hope.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, and the energy audit also really helps with the DBER retrofit so that it gives you an idea, almost a recipe of where to start with your retrofits, correct?
It does. Great point. It's almost can be sort of a roadmap because you can do some upgrades now that if you do them now, that actually makes doing something else more expensive or less possible. So doing them in a particular order that leads you up to ideally net zero, that's another value of these kind of formal reports.
Okay, and this next question, they want a heads up email to be sent in advance when the program is going to open, in case they're away from their computer.
Yeah, I'd really recommend Change for Climate. Sign up for the changeforclimate.ca because they went out the minute that the public service announcement was announced. And so if you've got your phone with you, you're going to get that email. And Change for Climate emails are always useful. The newsletter goes out that way. And if there's any advance notice too that we're able to give, which is likely, then you'll be that much better prepared. But changeforclimate.ca is your best bet.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that. So changeforclimate.ca, and on that site, click subscribe to the newsletter, and through the newsletter, we provide this information, as Barbara said. So again, when will the program become available again? I think that was, you've responded to that. You just don't know.
Oh yeah, correct. So this pilot will go along. And while it's a 2-year pilot, we could very well be done with the residential applicants, those first 80 or so, within a year. That's entirely possible. And we'll be expected to bring interim results to council in the next few months. I think June, there might be some details shared with council. And when they feel prepared to make a decision, they will do so. So for residential in particular, it could be never, might not be proceeded with, or it could be as some sort of formal decision as early as a year. I would say for those of you who like to watch council, which is actually pretty interesting stuff, there'll be a report going to council in June, and our director will be giving an update on the CEIP pilot. And that could be very interesting and very informative to hear the discussion between councillors of what they think. So that's an even earlier heads up than the changeforclimate.ca email.
Okay. Looks like you've got a colleague joining us from Alberta Municipalities, Steve Atani, the director of CEIP, and he is confirming that the home energy evaluations, the energy audits, sometimes we call them, they are required for all CEIP programs. So thank you, Steve, for that. Evelyn wants to know, what are the lessons learned so far in the pilot?
Oh, so many things. What not to do next time. There was just a whole lot of prep work done between City of Edmonton and Alberta municipalities And we had these other brave municipalities who went earlier. That was also very helpful. It's a pretty smooth process so far. You know, Steve, to put him on the spot, might have some observations, but from our angle with our residential pilot running, I don't know that I would do anything different except maybe start with more money, more houses right up front. But that's the, clearly we've got a nice distribution. Potentially $50,000 isn't high enough. Minimum 3 upgrades. I still really support that. Clearly there's an interest in solar and combining it with upgrades. Feeling like we did some things right to begin with, but I'm sure some failures will emerge soon, and we'll learn from those and incorporate that. So sorry, that was a wishy-washy answer. Steve or Tony, want to suggest anything else?
We'll see if he submits anything.
Or typing,
and yeah, I've got one last question that's that I've got here. Is, did the city have to borrow from any other organization for this program, or did the FCM funding cover the funding needs?
Great question. So the entire program is about over $12.25 million, and that includes $11.25 million financing and rebate. So that just under 10 that you saw on the slide earlier was what we borrowed from FCM. We had rebate programs in market already, so there's been already that will be combined with the financing, and then the city is actually covering some costs. So as with any other PACE or CEIP program in North America, the municipality does do some subsidizing. So I'm on several projects, but my costs for me and my team members for our work on CEIP are covered by the city of Edmonton. And the city of Edmonton has also engaged and hired Alberta municipalities for their services. So there's an exchange of funds there. So it didn't 100% cover. There's some taxpayer money that is subsidizing this program and would likely subsidize a permanent full-scale program if in fact that went ahead. So not the entire amount is covered. We tried not to pass along the full costs for a few reasons. One, we keep the interest rates low. That's great. We borrowed from that low cost lender, and there is an administrative fee that's added onto the financing. And while the program allows a municipality to charge up to 5%, City of Edmonton chose to go well below that. So there's just a 1.5% admin fee, and I believe Alberta municipalities even waived the application fee that they were entitled to charge. So as many ways as possible, keeping the cost as low as possible to the participant in order to encourage uptake and make it a good and economical experience for the applicants. Does that help?
Yes, yep, very much. And Steve Atani has come up on my screen, and I don't know if he wants to add anything, if he has the ability to unmute. There we go. Stephen, is there anything you'd like to add to what Barbara had to say?
I think Barbara nailed it. I think the biggest takeaway for us to date has been the size and scope of projects coming in. So Barbara mentioned in Toronto, the average project size is about $15,000. What we're seeing in the Edmonton program, but also in other programs in other parts of Alberta, is the project scales tend to be much larger. That could be for a whole different suite of reasons, pent-up demand, carbon tax, and people want to take action on climate change. But we do know the average size of projects impacts the total scale of a whole program and financing available. So that's one good takeaway for us as we model future programs, not just for the city, but for other municipalities, is maybe we need to calibrate our estimates and do some surveys and that sort of thing to see or get a better feel of what is the pent-up demand, because it seems quite high. And also, one thing we're seeing that is also different from other jurisdictions as well is people are doing quite comprehensive upgrades as well. So the city does require 3 upgrades for their program, but truthfully, in the Town of Devon, Town of Rocky Mountains program, we are seeing people do multiple upgrades. Whereas some other PACE programs across Canada, sometimes people will just do solar or 1 or 2 things, but people are really taking advantage of the low interest rates and doing more comprehensive upgrades. So all those will factor in and really impact total financing available in the future. And beyond that, we're always trying to make the program more streamlined and user-friendly as possible. So after we have the first round of pilot programs that go through, we'll take some surveys and we'll review our application processes and do what we can to enhance the customer experience. That's constant evolution of a brand new program that's the first of its kind in the province and only a handful of them across the whole country. So it's nice to see the city taking the lead, especially on the commercial front, because Barbara mentioned that's going to be one of the first, not just in Alberta, but we think one of the first in the country to have a commercial PACE financing available. So a lot of exciting stuff and always a lot of room for improvement.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Steve. That was it's terrific to hear. And we have no further questions. Barbara, is there anything else you wanted to add before we close things off today?
Thanks everybody for their interest. And if this is a program you think you might want to support, then you could always register to speak or even just attend council or send your thoughts to your councillor if that's of interest to you. And we'll just kind of carry on and see how to run this program smoothly and make it better and more accessible for more property owners.
Great. Thanks so much. So we hope that today's webinar has inspired you to learn more. And if you wanted to revisit the concepts that were presented today, visit myseat.ca/Edmonton. And there you can find all of the finer details about the program. Of course, there are many ways to stay informed about the city's climate change work, so be sure to follow us. And finally, again, thank you to my colleagues. Thank you, Barbara Daly, for doing the heavy lifting to develop a program that has the potential to move us significantly closer to net zero. And thanks for sharing your time and insights with us today. Thanks also to Steve Atani from Alberta Municipalities for chiming in with some information to help us out here today. Thanks, my colleague Karen Young, for handling all of the logistical pieces for today's session. And to you, our audience, I hope we will see you again at our next and final session on May 11. I hope you have a terrific afternoon. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us.